My landlord, Mr. Henderson, mentioned that over the last 2 years, he often saw me sitting on the porch steps at 4 in the morning, quietly wiping away tears while Isabella slept soundly inside. Everyone in our Boston neighborhood had pegged me as the high-maintenance, emotionally unstable boyfriend in the relationship. It wasn't until the day I finally moved out that they realized my suitcase held a devastating secret I had kept hidden for 5 years. I had saved her life once, yet she treated me like nothing more than a convenient bodyguard she could whistle for at any moment. When I finally set fire to the stack of love letters I never had the courage to send, our toxic romance reached its breaking point. If you found yourself in my shoes, discovering the betrayal between your girlfriend and a younger student, would you seek forgiveness or total destruction? During the mixer for our campus organization, I ended up doing shots on Isabella's behalf while trying to ignore the sharp, nagging pain in my gut. She was completely preoccupied, making sure a warm bowl of soup was delivered to someone else. It wasn't for me. It was for Tyler, a new freshman in her department. In that one moment, the 5 years we spent together felt completely hollow and meaningless. I walked back to our shared apartment in Cambridge, waited for her to get home, and told her we were done. She looked at me like I'd lost my mind, asking with a condescending laugh if I was really breaking up with her over a bowl of soup. I looked her in the eye and confirmed that yes, it was exactly because of that soup. She just rolled her eyes and headed back out, telling me she would wait to see how long this little tantrum lasted. She had no idea that this wasn't some dramatic act. I was truly done with her, and I already had my ticket to London booked for next month. The breakup happened during the spring semester of our sophomore year at the university during a farewell party for Sarah Miller, our club president. Sarah was a senior who needed to focus on her thesis, and she was planning to hand the reins of the organization over to Isabella. When we sat down, 2 shots of tequila were already waiting for us at the table. I immediately grabbed Isabella's glass and knocked it back before looking at Sarah. I apologized for being late and took the blame, reminding everyone that Isabella couldn't drink because of her allergies. That night was crucial for Isabella's future career goals. Taking over the club meant she would lead their flagship project, a specialized mobility device for the disabled. The engineering was nearly finished, only requiring some final testing and minor coding tweaks before they could file for a lucrative patent. The liquor burned like fire in my throat, making my chronic stomach pain flare up instantly. A girl at the next table gushed about how Isabella was so lucky to have me. Others joined in, calling me a saint and asking if we were finally going to get married after being together for so long. My face turned bright red, partly from the alcohol and partly because I was thinking about the engagement Isabella had once promised me. I started to say that we were planning something this year, but Isabella cut me off and shoved another shot glass into my hand. She told the group that we shouldn't steal Sarah's spotlight and that our plans were secret. Then she pressured me to toast the president. I looked at the glass she had forced on me, hesitated for a moment, and then downed the whole thing in one go. My chest felt like it was on fire, and the stabbing pain in my stomach became unbearable. Sarah cheered and started clapping, impressed by how much I could drink. I sat back down and tried to hide the fact that I was clutching my stomach in pain. No one else asked me to drink after that, which was a relief. I usually have a high tolerance because I always drink for Isabella at parties, but my gastritis was flaring up that night. Those 2 shots were honestly more than I could handle in my condition. I considered leaving early to take my meds and rest, but I didn't want to ruin Isabella's big night. I was just about to ask the waiter for some warm water when Isabella suddenly bolted from the table with a look of panic. She had left her phone behind in her rush. I figured she was heading to the front to pay the bill, so I grabbed her phone to take it to her. As soon as I touched it, the screen glowed, revealing an unlocked iMessage thread. The contact was saved as Silly Freshman Tyler. I recalled Isabella mentioning Tyler before, and I think we had met briefly once. He was a freshman who had just joined the club and was sitting at a table across the room. It was bizarre to see them texting each other while in the same room. Tyler had sent a message complaining about his stomach hurting from the spicy food, ending it with a crying emoji. Isabella had replied by calling him a crybaby and telling him to let his senior take care of everything. Tyler responded by saying she was the best and that he loved her. She told him to stop being a brat and sent a cat emoji, promising to order him some soup. He replied that he would be a good boy and wait for her. Isabella had sent me that same cat emoji only a few days prior. I had thought it was weird because she was usually so blunt and brief in her iMessages, usually just sending one-word answers. Now the pieces fit together. She was picking up new habits from her cute freshman friend. I took a quick look through their chat history, and while it was sickeningly sweet, nothing was an outright admission of cheating. Still, the realization made our 5 years together feel like a total waste of time. When Isabella walked back in with the soup, I just grabbed my things and told her I was leaving. I didn't even look at her as I walked out. I could hear people asking Isabella what was wrong with me as I headed for the exit. Tyler's voice piped up, sounding fake and concerned, saying he hoped I wasn't mad and that he didn't want to cause a fight. Isabella just brushed it off, telling everyone that I threw tantrums like this all the time. She said Sarah's party was the priority and she would deal with me later. She told Tyler to go sit down and eat his soup to help his stomach. Their voices faded as I walked away, and I realized I didn't care about her friends anymore. Once I got back to the apartment, I didn't even bother with my medicine. I just started packing my bags. The physical pain in my stomach had been replaced by a crushing weight in my chest that made it hard to catch my breath. I moved through the apartment like a machine, clearing out the closet and the space under the bed. In less than an hour, I had everything I owned packed and ready to go. There wouldn't be any cinematic scene of us crying over old photos or mementos. Our breakup was going to be clinical and quiet. I had followed her to this tech school in Boston, and we had lived together for 2 years. But looking around, I realized we didn't even have a single nice picture of us together. I stacked my things in the corner and ordered a new suitcase on Amazon. My phone was completely silent, with no calls or iMessages from Isabella at all. I stared at her contact photo for a long time before I finally broke down and checked her Facebook. Isabella had just pinned a new post to her Facebook feed 10 minutes ago. She was thanking Sarah and talking about the bright future of the club. There were photos of her with the seniors, and in the last one, Tyler was standing right next to her, grinning and making a peace sign. It was probably for the best that I wasn't in any of the photos, since she wouldn't have to bother cropping me out later. I was about to delete her number when I heard her key in the lock. She stormed in and asked what my problem was, but I just looked at her and told her we were breaking up. Isabella sighed and looked annoyed as she tried to give me a hug. She asked if I was mad because I saw her phone, then claimed nothing was happening with Tyler. She said he was just a kid from our hometown and she was just being a good mentor to him. She told me she only got him soup because his stomach hurt and begged me to stop being so dramatic. She even offered to stop talking to him if it made me feel better. I just laughed and pushed her away, looking into her eyes and realizing I didn't recognize her anymore. I told her again that we were finished. She snapped at me, telling me not to come crawling back later. As she turned, her coat caught a lamp on the nightstand and sent it crashing to the floor. She told me she was going to sleep and reminded me that she had paid the rent, so I was the one who had to move out. She slammed the bedroom door, convinced that I would be over it in a few days. She was so sure I would beg for her forgiveness, but she was wrong. I cleaned up the broken glass, changed the sheets, and tried to get some rest. A notification popped up on my phone from my health tracker, reminding me to take my medicine and watch my diet. It told me to avoid alcohol and get some sleep. I gave the app a 5-star review because it was sad that a piece of software cared more about me than my girlfriend of 5 years did. I had only been in the dorms for a month before Isabella begged me to move in with her because she missed me. I had been a top student in humanities back in high school, but I threw that away to study engineering just so I could be at the same college as her. I spent countless nights struggling with physics and chemistry, turning myself into a science student just to stay by her side. I could have gone to Harvard with my SAT scores, but I chose this school for her. Meanwhile, Isabella focused entirely on her research, obsessed with getting a patent before graduation. I worked as a private tutor to help pay our rent, often coming home exhausted late at night. Back then, Isabella would give me massages and take care of me, whispering about our future together. She used to hold me close and tell me how much she loved me. She promised that we would get engaged as soon as she got her patent and that she would buy us a house. I kept waiting for that promise to come true, but it never did. Over the years, her friends started to think I was the problem, labeling me as the difficult one in the relationship. It was a classic case of the boy who cried wolf. Everyone at school thought we were the perfect couple since we had been together since high school. The first time we had a major fight, her friends actually tried to mediate and told me not to do anything rash. Isabella spent 3 days trying to apologize after our first big breakup. By the second time, people didn't take it as seriously and just waited for us to reconcile. By the third time, the younger students would just joke about me throwing another fit whenever we had a disagreement. The older students told her to just humor me until I calmed down. She would try to make it up to me with gifts, like a PlayStation I didn't even want anymore. Once she even took me to a seafood restaurant and peeled shrimp for me, completely forgetting that I have a severe seafood allergy. She even got us matching shirts, but managed to spell my name wrong on mine. I often wondered if I was wasting my life on someone who didn't even know me. I finally stopped caring and called my advisor, Professor Miller, to tell her I was accepting the exchange program in London. My new suitcase arrived 2 days later, and I packed up the few things I had left. It was heartbreaking to see my entire life fit into one bag. I cleaned up the place and went to see Professor Miller to sign the final paperwork and thank her for the opportunity. Professor Miller knew I didn't come for money, and she had always treated me like a younger brother. I wouldn't have gotten into the program without her help. I gave her a hug to show my appreciation after we finished the paperwork. Isabella walked in with Tyler right as I was hugging my professor. It was just my luck that our advisors shared the same office space. I didn't say a word to them, just said goodbye to Professor Miller and walked out. Isabella caught up to me in the stairwell and grabbed my arm. She accused me of breaking up with her because I was having an affair with Professor Miller. I felt a surge of anger like I had never felt before. I pulled my arm away and slapped her across the face. Tyler immediately ran over to her, acting all concerned and asking if she was okay. His whiny voice was making me sick. I hit her hard enough to make her lip bleed. I told her to watch her mouth and that I wasn't a cheater like she was. Normally, seeing her hurt would have killed me, but I didn't feel anything this time. I just wanted to get away from her. I turned to Tyler and told him he didn't have the right to use my first name. I even smiled as I handed Isabella's hand to him, calling him a hero for taking out my trash. Tyler looked like he was about to cry, which just made me roll my eyes. Isabella tried to defend him, saying he was just there to register for classes and that I shouldn't pick on him. It was pathetic to see her protecting him like that. She didn't even care that I had insulted her. She was only worried about Tyler. I couldn't believe I had wasted 5 years on someone so shallow. I pushed past them, called her pathetic, and left the building for good. I felt great when I got home and ordered a sugary drink, which Isabella never let me have. She was always worried about me looking fat in photos if she ever won an award. I realized then that it was her life, not mine, and I didn't care about her stage anymore. I double-checked my papers and uploaded everything to the cloud. I had 10 days before my flight to London, so I decided to head back to my hometown in Connecticut. Professor Miller had already given me the week off to get my affairs in order. I took the Amtrak back home so I could clear my head and say goodbye to my old self. During the ride, I went through my phone and deleted every trace of Isabella from my apps. I also had a secret mission to complete while I was back home. I had a stack of old love letters buried under a tree back home that Isabella never knew about. I took a cab from the station and was back in my small town in no time. Some of the locals recognized me right away and started waving. People asked where Isabella was, so I just made up a story about staggered school breaks. I told them I was just there to visit my grandpa for a few days. Word travels fast in a small town, so I had to be careful about what I said. Everyone expected us to get married, and I didn't want to start a gossip firestorm that would upset my grandpa. I figured the truth would come out eventually while I was away in London. For now, I just wanted to keep things quiet and peaceful. I found the old tree where I had buried my box of letters years ago. It wasn't buried deep, so I was able to dig it up pretty quickly. The tin box was rusted and the paint had faded, but it was still intact. The letters inside looked brand new, like I had just written them yesterday. I was about to burn them when someone grabbed my arm, knocking the box out of my hand. It was Isabella, demanding to know what I was doing. Isabella looked like a wreck, with bloodshot eyes and a haunting stare. I couldn't believe she had followed me all the way back to my hometown so quickly. I regretted taking the slow train because it gave her too much time to catch up. She shoved a piece of paper at me, which turned out to be the school's announcement about the exchange program. She looked furious as she asked if I could read what it said. Her face was tight with anger and desperation. She gripped my wrist and asked if I was really leaving her after we had promised to get engaged. I told her we were done and to stop following me. I slowly removed her hand from my arm and told her it was over for good. She started crying and begging for another chance, saying she would change for me. She kept bringing up our 5 years together and asking how I could just leave her. I felt a tiny bit of pity for her, but it didn't last long. I knew I had to stay strong to finally move on from our past. I told her she was an adult and that she would survive without me. I explained that I was a person with my own needs, not just her accessory. I told her that I needed to be my own person again after 5 years of trying to make us work. I was tired of being defined by our relationship. Isabella didn't say anything. She just started picking up the letters from the ground. She was crying over the letters and reminding me of the wedding we had planned when we were 18. She promised we could have the blue-themed wedding I always wanted. I told her that those were just the dreams of a kid and that I didn't want any of it anymore. I gathered the rest of the letters and set them on fire right there. 5 years of memories went up in smoke in an instant. Isabella screamed and tried to put out the fire with her own body, getting her clothes covered in mud. The wind caught the ashes and carried them away as they continued to burn. They looked like glowing moths in the air before they finally turned to dust. I wiped a tear from my eye and realized how beautiful the ending actually was. Isabella followed me back to my grandpa's house, and I was too tired to stop her. The smell of fresh chicken soup was waiting for us when we got inside. I knew Grandpa Joe had killed one of his chickens as soon as I told him I was coming home. I gave Grandpa Joe a big hug and spun him around, happy to be home. He told me I was too thin and needed to eat some of his soup. He noticed Isabella was with me and told me to get her a bowl and some silverware. I told him she could get it herself, which surprised him. Isabella quickly said she would do it and sat as far away from me as possible at the table. She seemed to know she was on thin ice. Grandpa Joe asked if we were fighting while he served us both some chicken. He reminded Isabella how she used to protect me when we were kids and told her not to bully me now. He said I was the most important thing in his life, and he was counting on her to take care of me. I thought back to when we were 12 and Isabella's family first moved to town. Her mom was a big real estate developer who was working on a project nearby. They ended up staying much longer than they expected because of delays. Isabella was always in her older sister's shadow and didn't get much attention from her parents. I remember being down by the river one day, trying to clean a jacket that some bully had ruined with paint. I was frustrated because the stain just wouldn't come out. My leg cramped up and I fell into the river when I tried to stand. The water wasn't deep, but I couldn't move my leg and started to sink. I was terrified as the cold water made the cramp even more painful. Isabella was the one who pulled me out of the water and onto the bank. I was soaking wet and embarrassed when I finally came to. We both turned red when we looked at each other and quickly looked away. I ended up wearing her clothes home that day because mine were ruined. She went home in just her undershirt and got in trouble with her mom. Her mom thought she had been fighting and punished her for it. We never talked about that day, but we started dating in high school and made all kinds of promises about the future. She really did look out for me back then, even standing up to a stray dog that was chasing me. I felt safe with her for a long time. I grew up with just my grandpa after my parents died, and I was always the smallest kid in class. Isabella used to bring me food from her house to make sure I was eating enough. Eventually, her family hit some hard times when the housing market crashed. She claimed she gave up her inheritance to be with me and be independent, but I started to doubt that story. I remembered seeing her on the other side of the river before I even fell in. She had been watching me for a while before she decided to help. She almost walked away before she realized she could easily save me. I was so young and in love that I turned the whole thing into a fairy tale in my head. I even saw that stray dog later getting into her sister's car like it was their pet. Her sister was always going to get the family money anyway, so Isabella didn't really give up anything. I was the one who sacrificed my education to help her get into a good school. I spent all my time tutoring her in science, even though I was struggling myself. I realized that everything she did for me was only because it didn't cost her anything. She only ever cared about herself in the end. Her phone started ringing, and she looked at me nervously until I told her to just answer it. I took Grandpa Joe into the other room to give him a gift, leaving Isabella to take her call. She didn't realize that the walls in these old houses were paper thin. I could hear every word she was saying from the next room. Tyler was on the phone, crying about some data he lost during a test. He was upset because everyone was blaming him for the mistake. Isabella sounded annoyed and told him to stop acting like a child and that crying wouldn't fix anything. She told him she was busy and would deal with it when she got back in a few days. I had to laugh because she used to call me moody all the time. Now that Tyler was the one crying, she was calling him childish instead. Isabella always tried to act like she was never the problem in any situation. I finally had to tell my grandpa that we were over and gave him a package with all the money I'd saved. I wanted to make sure he was taken care of while I was gone. I told him that I was an adult now and could take care of myself without Isabella. I explained the whole exchange program in London and made him promise to take care of his health. I wanted him to use the money for good food and doctor visits. I decided to leave for the university that same night instead of staying over. Isabella followed me out, begging for another chance and promising to do whatever I said. She even said she would try to get her mom to pay for her to study in London with me. She kept talking about how we would get married and never be apart again. I just ignored her while the neighbors watched us and whispered. My ride was already waiting for me when I got to the main road. I got in the car and showed her my ticket, telling her that her future had nothing to do with me anymore. I told her to go get her patent and do whatever she wanted. I took a flight back to Boston, which was a lot faster than the train ride. I told Mr. Henderson I was moving out and asked about my deposit and the extra rent I had paid. He was really nice about it and offered to give me the whole deposit back. He said he enjoyed having me around and would miss our chats. He asked where Isabella was since he hadn't seen her in a while. When I told him we broke up, he just sighed and said it was probably for the best. He admitted that he never thought she was good enough for me anyway. I was surprised by what he said, so he sat me down and explained. He told me he often saw me sitting alone on the steps early in the morning while he was awake. I realized he was seeing me during all those times Isabella and I were fighting. He said she was never there for me when I was upset and crying on the porch. He knew she was just inside sleeping while I was suffering. He made me promise not to take her back, telling me he had seen enough of the world to know she wasn't right for me. He told me I needed to learn to love myself more, which made me start crying. It was such a relief to know that someone had seen my pain all along. I thanked him for everything and promised to start living for myself from now on. I hired some movers to take all of Isabella's stuff to the house her parents owned in the city. I finally realized why she wasn't worried about being kicked out of our apartment. She had a whole other house to go to and didn't even need the clothes she left behind. She liked to pretend she was the struggling daughter, but I knew her family was still incredibly rich. Even if she wasn't the favorite child, she was still well taken care of. I had just been playing along with her little act the whole time. Her mom would never actually cut her off. She just liked having me wait on her hand and foot. She could have easily paid the rent herself, but chose to live in my small apartment for the attention. I was done with the drama and ready for us to go our separate ways. I arrived in London a week later and was met at the airport by a really good-looking student from the university. I moved into the dorms, and my roommates were fascinated by my background. They kept asking me all kinds of questions about history and culture. I made a lot of friends and finally felt like I was living my own life. 2 months went by, and I had almost forgotten about all the drama back home. Then I saw a post from my old school's forum that was going viral. I still checked the school forum for news, but I didn't expect to see Isabella's name everywhere. It turned out that a rival school had filed for the same patent at the exact same time she did. They were our biggest frenemies on campus. Both applications were rejected because the data was identical, including all the mistakes. It was obvious that someone had plagiarized the work. The board blacklisted both schools from ever applying for patents again. Isabella realized that Tyler had been faking his crisis to steal her data that night. When she confronted him, He admitted that he was working for the other school's club. He had only gotten close to her to sabotage her project. Tyler insulted her and called her work garbage during their fight. He was mad because they both ended up failing in the end. Isabella actually attacked him, and the school had to get involved to break it up. The school tried to keep things quiet to protect their reputation, but Isabella ended up taking a year off. The gossip was all over the forums, and people were even talking about our old relationship. I figured the post would be taken down soon. Tyler actually posted a comment saying that Isabella was selfish and deserved what happened. He said she was always looking for something better and didn't deserve me. I decided to reply to his comment right then and there. I told him that Isabella actually could have succeeded if she had been more careful. I had found a bug in her project months ago and fixed it as a surprise. I had saved the correct data in our shared cloud folder. I had hoped she would find the fix and be happy, but she never even checked the folder. She hadn't looked at it in 6 months, even after we broke up. I eventually deleted everything, but she could have avoided this whole mess if she had just cared enough to look. Someone was posting old photos of us in the comments, and my new friends noticed me staring at them. They all crowded around to see who the girl in the pictures was. They asked if she was my girlfriend from back home. One of my classmates pointed out the window and asked if the girl in the photo was the one standing in the hall. I looked up and saw Isabella holding a massive bouquet of roses. She looked thin and tired, like she hadn't slept in weeks. The patent scandal had clearly taken a toll on her. She walked toward me with the flowers, drawing a crowd from the other classrooms. She told me she had reconciled with her family and that her mom was paying for her to stay in London for a year. She knelt down and offered me a ring box, begging for forgiveness. She admitted she had been terrible, but asked for one more chance. I just looked at her with disgust and knocked the flowers out of her hands. I told her she needed professional help and that I could have her arrested for harassment. I even threatened to report her for assault because of my pollen allergy. I asked her if she was trying to kill me with that giant bouquet. She tried to apologize, but I told her that my health was none of her business anymore. I told her to leave me alone because she was making me sick. The people watching realized this wasn't the romantic reunion they had expected. My friends checked on me while I held onto my roommate's arm. I told them she was just a stalker from my hometown who had followed me to London. Everyone looked at her with disapproval when they heard that. Some of the girls in my class blocked her from getting near me, so she finally had to leave. She didn't stop following me, though. She just stayed at a distance like a ghost. I could always feel her watching me from afar. She started sending me photos of myself with long letters written on the back, but I just threw them away. She tried to send me gifts and even asked people online what I liked. She was surprised to find out that I didn't really have any friends back at our old school. I had spent all my time with her and never made my own friends. I put all the gifts she sent on a shelf in the dorm lobby with a sign saying they were free for anyone to take. One of the older students even offered to be my fake girlfriend to get Isabella to leave me alone. I told her no because I knew Isabella would eventually get bored and go home. I joined an adventure club and signed up for a rock climbing competition, which was something I never would have done before. It felt good to try something new and exciting. I was excited to try rock climbing for the first time at a local park. Isabella was there in the crowd, watching me from behind. I was doing fine until I got near the top, and my hands started to get sweaty from nerves. I lost my footing and fell, and everything seemed to happen in slow motion. I saw Isabella just standing there, hesitating to help me. She could have easily stepped forward to catch me, but she didn't move. Even though I was on a safety rope and wasn't in real danger, her hesitation hurt. I finally lost all hope that she actually cared about me. Suddenly, another girl ran forward to try and break my fall. I crashed into her, and we both hit the ground hard. She was clearly hurt, and her arm looked like it might be broken. I quickly got some help, and we rushed her to the emergency room. I walked right past Isabella without saying a word, and she didn't even try to stop me. That was the last time she ever tried to talk to me. I found out the girl who helped me was named Olivia, and she was actually in one of my classes. I visited Olivia in the hospital every day to thank her for what she did. She was very open about having a crush on me since the beginning of the semester. She eventually asked me if I wanted to go out with her. I told her I wasn't ready for a relationship yet and that it wouldn't be fair to either of us. I want to be her friend, but I didn't want to rush into anything just because she helped me. She just looked at me with her big green eyes and listened. She said she didn't mind waiting, but I still told her no. I gave her some fruit to keep her quiet, and we just hung out until she was able to go home. My friends thought I should stick to teaching them about culture instead of doing dangerous sports. My professor signed me up to speak at a cultural seminar, and I agreed to do it. I felt great on the day of the speech, standing on stage in a nice shirt and feeling confident. I was ready to share my story with everyone. Isabella was there in the back of the room, but I could barely even see her. I realized I didn't even remember what she looked like anymore. I started my speech by introducing myself and telling everyone where I was from. I talked about fairy tales like Snow White and how they don't always make sense when you think about them. I also shared a story from my own culture about two lovers who were separated. I wanted to show how our ideas of romance can be flawed. In the story, the woman basically forced the man to stay with her until they had a family. People call it a great romance, but I wondered if he was actually in love with her. It made me think about how we sometimes force things that aren't meant to be. I told the audience that we should be in control of our own lives and not feel obligated to stay in bad relationships. I warned them about sweet poison and told them to get out before it's too late. We all have the power to choose our own path. I finished by saying that it's okay to walk away from someone who isn't right for you. Everyone cheered and clapped when I was done. I saw Isabella leave the room, and I felt a sense of peace as she disappeared. My future looked bright now that she was gone. Moving on isn't about being angry. It's about finally seeing things clearly. We often struggle to let go of the person we used to be in a relationship, but we have to remember that we are individuals first. That bowl of soup was a sign that I shouldn't waste my kindness on someone who doesn't appreciate it. Walking away was the best thing I ever did for myself. I hope everyone has the courage to start over and find their own way in life.